Hi everybody. So today we're going to be working on graphing the tangent curve. So what I would like you to do is to do the try this. What I want you to do is I want you to change all the degrees. So all of these here, I want you to change them all to radian measure and put it in the chart. So I want you to put all the radian measure in this row right here. So remember, to change from degrees to radians, you put the degrees with pi over 180 and then you reduce it. And remember, you should have pi in your answer. Okay, so put me in pause and fill in the next row for me. Thank you. Okay, so 0 degrees is 0 radians. Okay, so next we have 30 degrees would be pi over 6. Remember, that's 30 pi over 180, which reduces to pi over 6. So make sure you're writing these down. I'll try to follow along because it's going to kind of get jammed up in that row with me writing. You probably you won't be able to probably see it too well. Okay, so 45 degrees. I'll make sure I go a tiny bit slower than normal. 45 degrees would be pi over 4. 60 degrees would be pi over 3. 90 degrees is pi over 2. 120 degrees is 2 pi over 3. 135 degrees is 3 pi over 4. 150 degrees is 5 pi over 6. 180, we should all know this, is pi. 210 degrees is 7 pi over 6. 225 degrees is 5 pi over 4. 240 degrees is 4 pi over 3. 270 degrees is 3 pi over 2. 300 degrees is 5 pi over 3. 315 degrees is 7 pi over 4. And 330 degrees is 11 pi over 6. And obviously 360 would be 2 pi. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to fill in the value for all of your tangent of the angle measure down here. So if you're going to put in the degrees, make sure your calculator is in the right mode. Make sure it's in degree mode. If you're going to use the radian measure, make sure your calculator is in radian measure. Okay, so I'm going to use the degree measure. So if you want to follow along with me, put your calculator in degrees. All right, so tangent of 0 degrees, so plug in your calculator, is 0. Tangent of 30, so I'm going to write this on the sideways here, is 0.5773. I'm just going to put 0.577 because it's kind of tight there. Tangent of 45 degrees is 1. Tangent of 60 degrees is 1.732. Tangent of 90 degrees, now when you plug that into your calculator, you get an error. So that means it's undefined. So just put undefined in there. 120 degrees is negative 1.732. Tangent of 135 degrees is negative 1. Tangent of 150 is negative 0.5773. Tangent of 180 is 0. Tangent of 210 is 0.5773. Tangent of 225 is 1. Tangent of 240 is 1.732. Tangent of 270, again you get an error, that's undefined. Tangent of 300 is negative 1.732. Tangent of 315 is negative 1. Tangent of 330 is negative 0.5773. And tangent of 360 is 0. Okay, so now we're ready to graph this. So on the side of your axes of your y-axis, I need, let's put 1 here. And we'll put negative 1 down here. We need 1.732, so that would be up here. And negative 1.732. And we need 0.5773, so it's just about halfway. And negative 0.5773. Okay, I just want to fix this one here. All right, so we have to label the x-axis here. So we're going to label the x-axis in radians, not including the 0, starting from pi over 6 all the way across to 2 pi is 16 slashes. So let's put them down. Sorry, I didn't make it there, so I gotta erase it and redo that. I have to make them closer. Let's try it again. Okay. All right, so now let's label those. So the first one is pi over 6, then pi over 4, so label them. So you're just labeling all the radians down here. So mine's going to get jammed up. So you can just go ahead and label yours as I'm labeling mine. Okay, but if you can't see it, it's just because I'm trying to write small. But it is the radian measures that I'm just putting on all the tick marks here. Sorry if you hear my dog barking. So I'm up to 7 pi over 6 here. And then I have 5 pi over 4, 4 pi over 3. Now I'm up to 3 pi over 2 here. And then I have 5 pi over 3, 7 pi over 4, 11 pi over 6, and 2 pi. Okay, so now let's start plotting the points. Okay, so I have 0 radians is 0. Pi over 6 is 0.5773. Pi over 4 is 1. Pi over 3 is 1.732. And then we get to an undefined. So for the undefined, we're going to put an asymptote. That's what an undefined is here. So put a vertical dotted line. And then just continue graphing your points. So 2 pi over 3 is negative 1.732. Now when you're done plotting the points, don't graph it because I need to show you what it actually looks like. And then we get to 3 pi over 2, and again we have another asymptote here because it's undefined there. And then just continue to graph. Okay, so if you're not caught up to me, then just put me on pause and catch up. Okay, so hopefully everyone has their points plotted. So now we're ready to connect the points. So this is what your tangent graph will look like. So it looks like that. So they're like these squiggles that go up and down. All right, so a little bit of notes. There's just very little notes for a tangent. All right, so for the period for tangent. So right here, right in here, this would be one complete tangent curve. So from pi over 2 to 3 pi over 2 is one complete tangent curve. The outside ones here and here, those are half of a tangent curve. So this interval right here in the middle, from pi over 2 to 3 pi over 2, that is your period, which is a length of pi. So remember, pi is when you see one complete curve. Okay, so we see one complete curve in pi. There is no amplitude. Because it just keeps going up and it keeps going down, so that means there's no max and there's no min. Now notice here where the asymptotes are. So your asymptotes here are at pi over 2, that's 1 pi over 2 and 3 pi over 2. If I kept going, I wanted to continue my graph, my next one would be at 5 pi over 2 and then 7 pi over 2, 9 pi over 2. So your asymptotes are at odd multiples of pi over 2. So what that means is 1 pi over 2, 3 pi over 2, 5 pi over 2, 7 pi over 2, 9 pi over 2, and so on. And obviously the negatives, negative pi over 2, negative 3 pi over 2, negative 5 pi over 2, and so on. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is just graph with you what tangent looks like from negative 2 pi to positive 2 pi. Okay, so you can flip your paper over. Okay, so we're graphing tangent from negative 2 pi to positive 2 pi. All right, so my ends are going to be 2 pi and negative 2 pi. Half of 2 pi would be pi, and then I would have negative pi. From 0 to pi, so from here, 0 to pi, I have half a pi. So this would be pi over 2 and negative pi over 2. And then I have 1.5 pi's here, which would be 3 pi over 2 and negative 3 pi over 2. Remember, we have asymptotes at 1 odd pi over 2. So that's 1 pi over 2 and 3 pi over 2. And same thing on the other side, but at the negative odds. Negative 1 pi over 2 and negative 3 pi over 2. All right, so your graph will look like this, starting over here on the left. So your graph goes to the asymptote, so it's going to come up to the asymptote. Remember, an asymptote means the graph is approaching, but it's not going to cross. Okay, so that's your tangent graph from negative 2 pi to positive 2 pi. Okay, so just so you know, the work, the independent practice work that I'm giving you is not going to be on tangent. I'm just going to review, give you a little bit more review on graphing with the shifts, vertical and horizontal shifts, because there's really nothing else for me to give to you guys for a tangent. Tangent is pretty straightforward. It's cut and dry. Okay, so hope you guys have a nice day. Stay healthy, everyone. I miss you all.